Hi, I'm Emily Kramer. I am the founder of MKT1. I used to lead marketing at Asana and Carta. I have been a first marketer 4 times. I have led teams, and now I've advised teams at all stages as well as invested in them. So I have a lot of perspective on what it means to be a generalist and why it's important and why it's now more important than ever. So welcome. I want to thank our sponsors, our partners for making this possible. If you're wondering what they all do, here's a description. You'll actually be seeing them all later today. I hand-selected these companies, really though. They're all companies that I have partnered with before, use their products personally, or if their products don't make sense for my small business, people that I advise or companies that are in the MKT1 community have used. And so we have discounts on all of them. Thank you so much to all of them for providing discounts. We also have perk stack discounts, and our perk stack is exclusive deep discounts for our annual paid subscribers. So you should check that out as well. Most of you are paid subscribers that are here, a vast majority. So if you're not an annual paid subscriber yet, maybe a great way to use the rest of your L&D budget. Update, get access to the perk stack. I also want to thank all of you for being here. Again, this is mostly paid subscribers, and there were about 1,000 people who RSVP'd, which is incredible. And my goal was 500, so we doubled it. So thank you so much. So again, thank you all for being here. I think you're going to learn a lot. I'm excited to get to it here. I am going to go first, and then we're going to have AI workflows that you can implement by these lovely people, Nick, James, Elaine, and Austin. Then we are going to go into how to scale paid efficiently in the AI era. You might be noticing that paid is harder now, especially Google search. LinkedIn is really crowded. Keith and Max are going to talk about that. These three, Zena, Ting Ting, and Jenny, are going to talk about how they became gen marketers. They were gen marketers before I made up the term gen marketer. So they're going to be here to talk. And you can see they've worked at just amazing companies over the years. And you might recognize Jenny's name because she's one of the co-hosts on my Dear Marketers podcast. And then finally, we're doing a fireside chat with Dane, who is the head of B2B marketing at OpenAI, who better to hear from. And then I'll do some Q&A at the end. First thing we're going to talk about is, I don't know if you've noticed, but AI is bittersweet. And so someone asked me on LinkedIn if I was going to do drink pairings for this 4-hour conference, because that's a long time. And I think he meant alcoholic beverages, but I'm going with non-alcoholic beverages to keep this family friendly. So the drink for this section of the slides is grapefruit juice, because it's pretty bittersweet. Also one of my favorite beverages, fun fact. And I also decided to do song pairings because I'm a big music person, and this is a 90s throwback Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve. So if you're rewatching this later, that's the song you should play when I'm going through this section. You may be experiencing these symptoms right now. In fact, most marketers are. You may be noticing that your traffic is down. You may be noticing that things you did before, like writing long blog posts or making up gaps in your pipeline goals by running paid ads on Google, isn't working. You might be really trying hard to make your founder an influencer, or your founder might be asking you to make them an influencer. It's usually one or the other. Rarely is it that both the founder and the head of marketing want to make this happen. You may be feeling like there's so many tools, and how do you try them? Good news, you're here. You're going to see how a lot of these work today. And then you also might be feeling like there's so many silos on your team that are causing friction, and you're trying to stand out, and it's hard to come together to figure out how to do that. And lastly, marketing teams are still pretty lean, and there's still the massive expectations. And so there's lots of confusion, lots happening. So if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, totally normal, because AI has changed not just how marketing works, but how startups operate. So what has it done? And I'm going to go through this quickly. I'm just setting the stage here. You probably already know this stuff. We'll get to some good meat and some examples in a little bit. But it's easier to create products and easier to create content because of AI, obviously. And it's easier to access info, data, ask questions of LLMs, generate information, enrich contact details, enrich accounts. I could go on and on. But there's a catch, and you all probably know it, which is that it's harder to differentiate, it's harder to stand out. And while you're trying to do this, and while marketing feels harder, you're trying to keep on top of all of these new tools and processes and workflows and agents and et cetera, and reading my 4,000 word newsletters every 2 weeks. It's a lot to stay on top of. So in short, to summarize this briefly, B2B marketing changing really fast. Many teams are not keeping pace. But I have confidence that you can catch up, and you should have confidence that you're not alone. I have confidence that you can learn the skills that are needed because we're all here to help. I have confidence because I've lived through a couple of shifts. Mainly the mobile and social shift was when I started working. I remember just trying to get to the top of the App Store for a bunch of things. And I lived through the self-serve PLG motion coming to be when I was at Asana. And I'm now part of this AI shift as well. All of these shifts, you've had to change a little bit how you do marketing. Maybe the AI shift is bigger, but throughout time, you have to change up how you do things. And we all tend to adapt. But the difference here is that these past shifts have caused the need for more specialists. We had social media managers pop up when social pops up, and we had self-serve and PLG led to the rise of growth hackers and growth marketers as opposed to digital marketers. So we change things all the time and roles change. But the difference here is that now we need more generalist marketers, not specialists, because standing out and cutting through the noise and moving quickly enough demands a generalist skill set. So this shift is going to lead to more marketing generalists than we've seen, at least in the time that I've been working, which is about 20 years if you're keeping track. So we're going to talk about the marketer of the future today. That's a gen marketer. I made it up, but it seems to be catching on. So what does that mean? A gen marketer is a marketing generalist who is a gen AI expert. I just added this one because I couldn't help myself. It's a campaign generator, and it's someone who is ready for the generational shift that we are experiencing due to AI. So you're experiencing these symptoms. Marketing is changing. You hear about this all the time. It's old news. You're like, Emily, I know. Stop. Help me. How do I fix it? You need to become a gen marketer. So when you're thinking about becoming a gen marketer, you can play the song I played at the beginning. That's My Generation by The Who. It is the generation. I actually believe that not only is it the generation of gen marketers, but I actually believe it might be a great generation for marketers because it is so much harder to stand out on the product side. And you can actually build a real moat via brand and marketing activities. And the drink here for gen marketers, how to do it, is a smoothie, because you need to blend all of your skill sets and make something that still people want while blending it all together. And I shouldn't have picked a green smoothie because I recognize that not everyone wants that. But imagine I picked like a more delicious, I don't know, peach mango situation. All right. So let's meet the gen marketer. Let's dive into what it means and how to do it. As I mentioned, AI has led to more generalists. And here's why. Because it's harder to differentiate, you need to run high impact campaigns geared to your audience. They need to be tightly coordinated. They need to stand out. They need to be creative. They need to be human. And I'm going to give you some examples of those in a few minutes. Real examples from real companies that you've probably heard of. Because it is so much easier to create content, it's harder to stand out, but also channels show diminishing returns or stop working faster because they're getting flooded with AI slop or flooded with content or what I call fuel in general. So you need to be able to be nimble across formats, which requires being a generalist, not a specialist. You need to build hybrid teams, which is a combination of AI, agencies or contractors, and in-house gen marketers. You might be sitting there thinking, I'm a growth marketer, I'm a product marketer, I'm a content marketer, I'm a partner marketer, name your marketing type. You might be being like, does this apply to me? Do I really need to be a generalist? Yes. Gen marketer isn't just another job title. It could be a job title. You can use it for your founding marketer or even a marketing leader or marketing you're hiring that you want to lead campaigns and do all of this work. But it's more than that. It's actually the new baseline skill set for marketers. I believe that whatever role you're in, all of those roles I mentioned, or any of the other ones, that you need to up-level your skill set to gain more generalist skills for the AI era. Now, you might also be thinking, wasn't that always beneficial? It was always beneficial, but it is, I would say, almost required at this point. As teams get leaner, you can learn more specialties by using AI, and because to stand out, you need tighter coordination. What is the gen marketing skill set? It combines a lot of things you're probably already familiar with. A pie-shaped marketer was actually one of my first newsletters way back when. I don't even know when it was, 4 years ago. I've lost track of time. But a pie-shaped marketer is like a T-shaped marketer or a T-shaped person. T has breadth and one spike in a specific subfunction. Pie-shaped marketer has 2 spikes, say in product marketing and content marketing, or growth marketing and product marketing. And so I used to say you want to become a pie-shaped marketer and have deep expertise in one area, proficiency in another, and breadth across all of them. I believe this is more important than ever, but even that is not enough. Having breadth and depth in a couple of specialties is not enough. You also need to deeply understand your audience, market, and product like a product marketer. This is not optional. You have to get personalized in the things that you are doing for marketers. If you don't personalize or make things human, it's not going to stand out. So you need to understand this even more than ever before. And also, because there's more products popping up, because it's easier to build products and it's harder to differentiate, that means, or the reason for that, is that these categories are getting so crowded. And so if you don't keep tabs on what's going on in your market and what your audience is saying, you're going to lose the plot really fast. It used to be that you could change positioning every 6 months, totally normal. And now I'm seeing companies, especially fast-growing AI companies, have to change their positioning like every 3 months because their markets are changing so fast and growing so fast. It's not the case for all companies, but the case for many. So you have to think like a product marketer in that way and have those insights, or at least be able to communicate effectively with your product marketer who has those insights. Next up, I've talked about this a lot already. You need to be like a campaign manager that combines fuel and engine effectively. Fuel and engine is one of my most commonly used frameworks, as I jokingly and lovingly call my frameworks. Fuel is all the creative and content that you create. Engine is how you distribute it. And so you have to be able to combine those things effectively and not just make content and hope for the best or launch a new channel and not have anything good to put through it. Lastly, Gen marketers excel at being an AI orchestrator. They know how to use all these tools. They know where to plug in AI, where to plug in a human. They build out workflows. They generate content that way, etc. So when you put this all together, here's what a Gen marketer looks like. It's a nimble and high velocity operator. It's an audience obsessed campaign manager and an AI orchestrator. So now if you've seen all the promotion for this event and you're like, what are all these Venn diagrams? It looks like the back of a kid's room or a preschool. I'm not sure. That's not what I was going for. I was going for the fact that a Gen marketer combines all of these skill sets. All right, so you might be wondering, again, what happens to my specialty? Don't get rid of your specialty, but layer on this Gen marketer skill set on top. Layer on the ability to work across silos. Layer on the ability to use AI. When you're thinking about, say, if you're a content marketer, if you're thinking about, I'm making this content series or I'm making this video series, think about distribution from day one and how to put that all together. If you're a product marketer, you have a lot of these skills and starting from the audience, market, and product perspective, but you're going to need to use AI and think a bit more about differentiating and make sure that knowledge is more spread across the team. And if you're a growth marketer, you're going to need to stay more nimble across channels than you were before. You're going to need to learn how to do signal-based campaigns and use AI for enrichment if you haven't already. A lot of things you're already probably starting to do, so you're probably already on the right track. So I believe that you still have a specialty or something you came up through, but you need to have this generalist skill set as well. And I believe that some of the deep specialists, the people that love getting like tons of reps on the same sort of thing, like running paid, for instance, will be outside of companies more so than inside. So what's going to happen is not only is your skill set going to change, but I believe that right now marketing is mostly teams of specialists. And I think that's going to shift a little bit to be more teams of Gen marketers. What might this look like? Today, we have very siloed teams. There's a basic org chart. I'm starting to see more and more that people are, and I've been talking about this actually for a couple of years before I coined the term Gen marketer, that teams should be adding in, say, campaign managers or producers to work alongside the head of marketing to keep these things moving together. Could be an integrated campaign manager, again, a producer, a chief of staff, or even a marketing coordinator connecting these dots. But I think we'll see this flatten even more. And we'll see Gen marketers reporting into the head of marketing, and they will be working with a mix of some full-time specialists on areas where you know you're really succeeding or have an advantage, but they'll be working with agency contractors and AI agents. The teams will get less sub-function focused and be driving tighter coordination across campaigns. Hallie's going to put up a poll here, or she already did, which is, how siloed is your team right now? Just curious, let's get a pulse. 0 is like free-flowing, you're not siloed. Maybe it's just you. Maybe you're the only marketer. And 10 is it's really not working. You're really in silos. And what's interesting here actually is that we are getting people just all over the map consolidating in the middle. We have some teams that are completely siloed and really struggling, but most people are falling in this middle range of more siloed than not. So the point is that you're all feeling this, you're all feeling those silos, and you want to break them down. And I think the main thing is I think the main thing here is that you want to start making steps towards having people that are breaking down the silos. Maybe not everyone, but a couple of people. And that can most certainly actually be you. And so later today in our panel with Jenny, Zena, and Ting Ting, they're going to talk about how they have gained a Gen marketer skill set and risen up to take on these roles. So if you are trying to become a CMO in the future, this might be a great path for you to take on one of these roles in the middle here today. I'm going to answer a really quick question, which is, do you see a place for Gen marketers as consultants or in fractional roles? Do you think they only add value as in-house marketers? That's a really good question. So I talked about how I believe that a lot of specialists will be outside of the company, and someone's asking if there will be Gen marketers outside of companies too. And I think definitely, I think fractional heads of marketing, I think people leading agencies that have this skill set, I think agencies that can put this all together and help you run campaigns, or agencies that can help you do, say, I'll talk about this in a minute, but run your LinkedIn flywheel from end to end or run your ecosystem programs from end to end can make sense. So yes, I see a place for that too. Agencies will and contractors will cover the gamut, but I do see even now, most of the time when you're at scale and you go outside for help, this is again at scale when there's numerous marketers, typically you're doing that to gain a deep specialty in an area where you want someone who has seen patterns over and over again by working with many companies. So things like PR, where there's economies of scale on media relationships, or things like paid, where there's a deep understanding of how channels work. Okay, we'll take most of the questions at the end, but that one seemed like an important one to answer. So what actually works in the AI era? And this is the part I'm most excited to get to. The song pairing is Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. You're going to need to, these examples all show people really thinking out the box and standing out. And you might need some espresso to be able to pull off campaigns like this, but you can do it and caffeine can help. I need some caffeine, actually. Poor planning. Okay. So I can't do a presentation without using the RAM emoji. If you're not super familiar with Market One, no worries. What's the RAM emoji? Random acts of marketing is when you do disconnected activities. And the abbreviation for random acts of marketing is RAM, and that also is the word for a RAM. So RAM emoji, I use it all the time. I have a sticker of it on my microphone. I don't think you can see. Yeah. You come to a Market One supper club, you can have one of those stickers. Big incentive. But now more than ever, you need to turn your random acts of marketing into connected activities and impact-focused campaigns. In this world where everyone is moving faster because of AI and it's harder to stand out, you have to be thinking about impact all the time and not doing the stuff that just doesn't matter and doesn't move the needle. This is where Gen marketers come in, because Gen marketers run campaigns, not disparate activities. What's a campaign? In my language, a campaign combines fuel, content, and creative with the right engine for the fuel. You want them to match. I make the comment all the time, you don't want to end up with a Tesla at a regular gas station. It doesn't work. The fuel and engine don't match. They have to match. I've written a ton about this. You want to check out some newsletters on that. The fuel and engine needs to match, and they need to match for your audience. Certain audiences aren't on LinkedIn. They're on TikTok or wherever they are. You get the idea. These three things need to match. So a campaign combines fuel and engine for the right audience, and usually there's a time parameter or a theme, but there doesn't have to be. You could also use the word initiative or workflow or a big bet, but it's really a set of connected activities as opposed to disconnected random acts of marketing. And so you also as a team need to be planning around big bet campaigns, not planning, I'm going to write 10 blog posts. Please stop doing that. Not planning in, I'm going to run 10 events, but instead planning around the big bet campaigns, which I'll show you some in a minute. You should be looking at campaign influence on revenue as a form of attribution. I think this is the most important form of attribution. The influence of each campaign on revenue, not first or last touch. And finally, for marketing and sales, efficiency is so important now, and that needs to be measured by blended CAC, which means all up spend across sales and marketing and how that is and how you are performing across campaigns. So the blended cost of acquiring customers. And so that's thinking about holistically, how are your efforts working together as opposed to how did this one-off channel do, which you can still look at, but it's not the most important thing to look at. I could spend an hour and a half talking about attribution, probably 7 hours. So that's just a 2-minute taster because I had to put something in for the people that love the reporting and math stuff, of which I am one. So here's some high-level examples that I talk about all the time. One is to avoid a piecemeal strategy on LinkedIn. So instead of having someone manage influencers and someone managing LinkedIn ads and someone managing your exact thought leadership content, have a Gen marketer in charge of this workflow. They can be pushing things out to specialists or contractors to help, but have a Gen marketer in charge of this workflow and turn it into a LinkedIn flywheel. Another example is ecosystem efforts. So instead of doing work, I consider ecosystem working with customers, creators, channel partners, integration partners, influencers, advisors, investors, all of that, everyone in your network. Instead of doing one-off activities with them, turn these into loops. And there are some examples, and I wrote about this in Lenny's newsletter a few weeks back. If you don't read Lenny's newsletter, I don't know how that's possible because he has over 1 million subscribers. So I'm convinced that's everyone in the tech universe. So you can check that out too for more examples of connecting disparate activities into campaigns, loops, flywheels, initiatives that drive more impact, or I should say generate more impact. So here's what works now. Here's what actually works. And then I promise you I'm getting to those examples. On the engine side, ecosystem marketing, going through partners, creators, influencers, your customers to get them to be marketers for you, piggybacking on their credibility works. An account-driven foundation, not just looking at lead stages, but looking at account progression. This is now possible because you can get all of the account information and enrich it and unify in Tofu. We'll talk a little bit about this. Zero-click readiness. Zero-click means fewer people are going to your website because they're getting what they need in LLMs. Therefore, search traffic is declining. And so you have to be ready for that. And so Profound will talk a little bit more about that. Next up, your fuel, your content, your creative. It needs to feel human because everyone's, oh, what is this AI slop? It feels so impersonal. So things that feel personal and tied to your audience matter. The blog is pretty much dead, except for in some instances. I know I write long-form content for a living, but you need to mix your long-form content with data, tools, education, courses, hackathons, I could go on, calculators, things you vibe coded, all of that. And then finally, video is what every channel is pushing right now. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. Everybody loves the short form vertical video, and video works pretty well right now. And so if you don't have a video motion at all, you probably need to add some videos into what you're doing. We've already talked about what works on the process side. That's planning around big bets, driving efficiency through AI workflows, and thinking in audience-first terms. This is what Gen marketers can do right now that works. Here's a campaign example. Granola Crunch. Not sure if you saw this. I believe it was last week. Like Spotify Wrapped. Lots of people try to copy Spotify Wrapped and falls flat. Granola's didn't fall flat because Granola has a ton of your meeting data because it transcribes meetings, records, transcribes them. And so they actually use their own set of AI prompts to build out Granola Crunch, very clever name. And everyone shared them because they were so human feeling and so personal that they basically drove ecosystem marketing by getting everyone to share these personalized things. Here's one of mine, how I like to aggressively simplify chaos. Super accurate. They uniquely were able to do this because they have all of this data from your meetings that they can turn into research. So instead of just doing a blog post about the biggest insights from this year on granola, they made this super shareable, human feeling thing. And Jack, marketing at Granola, he talked about how they did this on LinkedIn and how it was a team effort and how it required this generalist skill set. And I think that some of these examples, the next one being Lovable she builds, a lot of these, you can't even decipher the fuel from the engine. It's like everything is both fuel and engine. Like you're telling people they're accepted into this she builds program, which I'll talk about. That's generating fuel that someone's accepted, but it's an engine because everyone's sharing it. So it's just, you can't even tell anymore. They're just so tightly coordinated. So She Builds is a 2-day hackathon for people who want to vibe code tools on Lovable. It's for women, non-binary people, but they also do hackathons for others as well. And they're really encouraging sharing from the beginning and encouraging people to share videos of what they're doing, that they're accepted, that they applied, what they built, that they're building. So it naturally generates that human feeling ecosystem marketing. They're making a big bet on hackathons. When you read anything about rapid growth, they talk about the hackathons they're doing. They're getting people in, they're doing education and getting people to use the product and in turn becoming evangelists and marketers. So they have a flywheel going of use the product, want to be able to do more with it, join a hackathon, do some education, become better at using it, become an evangelist, share, the flywheel continues. Another example, Profound is here today, but Profound made an index of brand visibility or how companies show up in LLMs. They did this for a number of different categories. You can see here streaming, aerospace, credit cards. I don't know if they're doing this yet, but they could actually, if they're targeting in an account-driven way, targeting, say, Hulu, they could send Hulu a note saying, hey, we're tracking your visibility already. Here's how you're doing. We'd love to help you do this even more. So this lends itself, not only is it this index on their website that actually gives people a reason to come to their website in the zero-click world, but it also could be fuel for tons of different campaigns and account-based campaigns as well. And they're using their own product to do this and showing the scope and range of their product. Clay World Records. Not sure if you saw this one. Super fun example. And we have Ting Ting from Clay here today on our panel. And she'll talk a little bit about how they do campaigns at Clay. But they did this thing called World Records, which is absolutely ridiculous. Only they could do it because it's so specific to their brand and feels like their brand. It's fun. It's a little ridiculous, but it shows off all the ways you can use clay and rewards people for making clay tables and doing clay things in the weirdest of places. So someone shared a video on a jet ski. I'm a boating enthusiast, so I put the jet ski example. I do not have a jet ski, but maybe someday soon. To enter the Clay World Records, you have to submit video. You have to, and therefore you're going to share it, and they're going to make a bunch of video without having to have a bunch of marketers making them. For all of these examples, the teams talked about how they did them. So not only are they doing these big back campaigns, but they're building in public and explaining how they're doing them. So you can learn a lot from reading these posts. Those are my 4 examples. What do they all have in common? They took a creative idea, rooted in deeply understanding their audience, specific to their company. Only their company can do it. They're leveraging their company's marketing advantages or their company's unique attributes and accelerating them by combining the fuel and the engine that go together that are so close that it's hard to tell what's the fuel and what's the engine. It doesn't matter anymore. And they're run by Gen marketers, people who are nimble and connecting the dots across teams and doing this without silos. That's what Gen marketers do. They do campaigns like Granola Crunch and Lovable She Builds and Clay World Records and the Profound Index. You can do this too. It might seem like a lot. You can get there. Let's bring in some Gen marketers that can help. So for this section, the song is LCD Sound System, All My Friends, and the drink is milk, because you're going to be nourished with learnings. And if you've listened to my podcast, we talk about milk in every episode for some unknown reason. It became a thing. So the drink is milk. Hat tip to those who listen to the podcast.